So we have Governor Whitmer's Rebuilding Michigan program funding, and we have an infra grant from federal government. Those have dates or years that we have to have construction complete by. So by utilizing a progressive design build, that helps shorten that overall project duration. So on this slide, we're going through the upcoming meeting schedule again. April 22nd has already passed. Obviously, this is for here. So the next meeting will be the June 26th, which will be the draft neighborhood framework plan. We have another LAC meeting in late July to go through more of the traffic operation. More importantly, to answer a lot of questions and concerns that I've been getting since I've been added to this project. August 6th is another community meeting, and then the 21st is the final framework that will be presented, and then October 2025 will be the final framework document release. So overall, with this project, very complex, a lot of moving parts, requires a lot of communication and a lot of teamwork. With that, there's our project website, and then Bradley will go through.
Could a member of the project team please grab those questions for me and bring them up? I will, so we'll get to the Q&A now. I'll read the ones in my hand. Just raise them and they're walking around. We're gonna grab them and bring them to me, okay? So, project team, we're ready? Okay. The first question is, what accommodations will be made to handle increased traffic on Mac going west to Midtown and also turning left and emergency south to reach Little Caesars Arena and downtown?
Yep, so in our design, particularly at Mac and to Midtown, that design work is continuing to progress. We are taking a step back as far as the interchange goes, and I should have mentioned that on that slide. I-75 and I-375, right now we have proposed as a diverging diamond interchange. Before we go and spend all that money on that interchange, I would really like us to take a step back, re-verify that what we're doing is truly the best fit for the city of Detroit, for the freeway, for all of the area stakeholders. And so with that traffic simulation, that traffic modeling, we're going to be looking at all the movements in and around that area, including the MAC service drives. There's 4 different interchange concepts that we are going to be analyzing. Those interchange concepts will be run through the model at AM and PM peak volumes to see where does it fail, can we make tweaks, modifications to alleviate some of this delay that we're experiencing. And then once we go through that exercise, then we start looking at, okay, now what do these interchanges look like when it comes to special events? So with those movements to the north, including movements for Gratiot coming into the downtown area, those will all be part of that model.
Okay, so why is there a new road behind Brewery Park instead of Fordville having direct entrance to 375 Boulevard from their parking garage? Why so many separate lanes and ramps at the curb? So,
yeah, so there are boards around here that will kind of show the layout, so it's a little bit easier if you can talk with us about that question at the boards. But I will say that new road that kind of leads behind Ford Field and goes over to near where the Cranes property exists today. The purpose for that is a local street connection from basically Brush Street or Ford Field over to Eastern Market. So we think it's actually a big improvement in the connectivity over there.
so is any aspect of this project impacted by the federal government cuts? Does Mdot have a contingency if federal funds are frozen?
As far as the federal cuts go, the FHWA Michigan section office, they've essentially been cut in half. They had about 30-ish people in their office. They're down to 17. That's how many people took the advance, there was a term for it, advance resignation and that sort of thing. So, executive leadership at Mdot, much higher than my level, are evaluating what exactly that means, not just for this project, but for all of our federal funded projects. Grants-wise, with this grant that's already been authorized, it's been signed. So that's already approved at the federal level. But as far as like working through some of the different approval processes with staff at FHWA, we don't know the extent of that just yet, but there are states that are partnering to get through this. So one of the things that Michigan is discussing, Federal Highways Michigan, is partnering with Wisconsin. Illinois, I heard, was going to partner with Texas, of all states. So, Texas. So they're basically just trying to keep up with the workloads because all the states that we have projects that need to go to fruition, and they still need to take place. So
the next, how will you be making this project disability accessible?
Yep. So all of our intersections, all of our connectivity has to follow ADA guidelines. It's not a guideline, actually, it's a law. So Americans with Disabilities Act is something that we take very seriously, and so we are working through all of that with our design that's going to be incorporated into what we've got going on. That includes push button, pen signals, pedestrian signals, all of that. So, and then
just to add to Jason's answer, there's been a couple refinements to the design based on stakeholder feedback, folks coming out to meetings like this and telling us they want more design changes to be accessible for all users, including vulnerable users. And part of that is the addition of like what we call curb bump outs that make the crosswalks at streets shorter and easier to cross. There's also a protected, basically a bike path and sidewalk on the east side of the boulevard that's physically separated from the roadway by landscaping and trees. And so we think, although that's not specifically addressing the accessibility question, it is helpful along those lines. And so we hope that when you guys are visiting the boards again, to plug the boards and the stations back here, you can see visually what these improvements look like.
So the current freeway is 4 lanes each way. What will happen to the vehicular traffic that uses that freeway when the new boulevard is put in? So basically, yeah, I think they're asking about the volumes of traffic that currently use the freeway and how the new boulevard will affect that.
Yep. So part of the modeling that we're going to be doing with the traffic is going to help kind of form that decision that gets made at the interchange, but at the same time, it's going to show how the boulevard reacts. Again, the model is going to be looking at AM and PM peak flows. So, at 10 in the morning on a Wednesday, that's not what this model is going to be looking at. So, previous to my arrival on this project, I think the boulevard was 4 lanes each direction, plus the turn lanes at the intersections. And so I know John has worked really hard to pare that down so that it's 2 lanes each direction, and then you still have turn lanes at some of the different intersections. So, in general, I would say that traffic should move through there well, and that's why we're running the modeling, so that we can just verify that that decision isn't creating something that leaves us worse off. Because my biggest fear is that we come out here and we spend all this money, and at the end, it's the same, or it's worse than what it is now. So I don't think anybody should have to go through that much construction pain to just end up at where you are now.
So next question, how does Mdot know which streets or roads to do? For example, 8 Mile keeps being done and done again, while other roads are overlooked.
Yeah, so that's kind of more of a global metro region question. We have what we call an asset management plan. So I try to correlate it to owning a car. You do preventative maintenance on that vehicle, you get your oil changes and that sort of thing. You don't wait for the engine to completely cease. And so, and then you have to buy a new car. So with the way that we approach a lot of the road work and bridge work, Some of the roads can get by with just a one-course mill and resurface. Others need a reconstruct. The decisions are made based on funding levels. We don't have an incredible amount of funding, as everybody's aware of, so we have to kind of work our way through the backlog of projects that we want to do. They're not easy decisions. We definitely have to stay within our fiscal boundaries of what our funding is. And that's where some of these grants become very advantageous because it helps us stretch our regular road and bridge template dollars. So like on a project like this, we wouldn't be able to afford this without an infra grant and certainly not without bond funds.
So next question, how are you connecting with the Renaissance Center design? Basically, how are we coordinating with the changes to the Renaissance Center?
Yep, we have upcoming meetings to discuss what their design is and how that's gonna kind of mesh into what our plan is along Jefferson. So that goes back to the point I was making about communication and engaging with stakeholders often and frequently. They have a lot of potential changes down in that area. We just need to make sure that we have a two-way street of communication to make sure that what we're doing meshes with what they're doing and vice versa.
So next question, what is the change in impervious surface through this project? Are we adding more, removing, or is it the same?
Yeah, it's definitely a reduction. I don't think we have a percentage on that yet, but it definitely plays into overall stormwater management. There are laws that if you're adding impervious surface, that you have to treat a certain amount of that runoff. With this project, and we are with the reduction of impervious, we are still doing the storm hydrodynamic separators and that sort of thing. So a lot of the time when you have a project where you're adding impervious material or pavement, you have to have some kind of a treatment option. So hydrodynamic separators, vegetative buffers, extra deep sumps and manholes to capture sediment. So all of that kind of plays into this. But with this project, we are working with all of those items, even though overall there's a reduction. I don't have the percentage on what the reduction is, but it's less.
So this next one is kind of a repeat. It's asking about considering all the federal government fund cuts, what will happen to the project? But
yeah, and that's a fair question because of everything we're reading in the news and all of that. But a lot of the stuff that's kind of in limbo are grants that are not authorized in the Senate. They're grants where a local municipality, they get the letter and it says, yep, you're going to get a grant, but then there's a process to go through the finalization of that grant, and that's where they're still caught. We're well beyond all that.
have you considered the amount of traffic that goes in and out of downtown for games and events? Will this project cause congestion?
Yep, so that's a big reason why we're doing the modeling. Again, to kind of touch on those interchange models. We're going to be using those to kind of help inform the interchange design concept, and then to very realistically see what is the special events impact for this concept, and this concept, so that when we make a decision, because they're all the concepts have pros and cons, none of them are going to check every box across for everyone. But whatever we proceed with, here's the pros, here's the cons. Can we live with these cons? And I want to reiterate that, and it's not on the slide as a goal, right? But I think it's a little bit. I want to say that whatever we do here, that we're going through all this construction, all this pain, that when we come out the other end, that we have a better moving multimodal system than what we have today.
So next question is, what is the definition of excess area and what is the intended use?
So the excess right-of-way is basically everything that's going to be east of the boulevard, essentially. Right now, the right-of-way footprint for the freeway is much larger than what we would need for a boulevard. So That property is basically excess right-of-way is what it's referred to. And it is in the project, went through what we call the NEPA review, which is basically a fancy way of referring to the environmental assessment and review that Federal Highways requires on projects, especially of this magnitude. And so in that, we call it the NEPA review or decision, the excess property is marketable property is sold, and then the proceeds from that go back into the project to fund basically community enhancements, that sort of thing. So it's a little bit chicken and the egg in a way, because marketability for that property is going to be a little bit after, I would say, the boulevard is constructed. But that's basically what we're obligated to do for federal highways.
So this next question.
It sounded like the second part of that question was what is going to be done with
What
the
is the
land.
intended use?
Right.
Thank you,
Just
Dave.
want to make
Yes.
sure that we
Yes.
answered that. And I don't want to speak for the city of Detroit, but close collaboration. And then the city of Detroit has a land use neighborhood framework that they're working through. And they've had multiple community meetings, I think 1 or 2 in this building already. So working through that to help determine for them to determine what's going to happen with that excess property.
Yeah, and the next one is on June 26th, location to be determined. And at that meeting, they'll be, sharing some report out from what happened at the last meeting and next steps on that framework process. So there's definitely still time to give feedback for what you would like to see for intended uses. This next question is kind of a follow-up for what we were just talking about, because it says, what assurances can Mdot provide that will be that there will be community enhancements as promised and required by the green sheet and the FONSI, the federal document?
Yep. That's something that we are required to do. It's not an option. So that is a commitment that Mdot has made with this project in accepting the grant from Federal Highways, etc. So even if we wanted to go around it, we can't. We're obligated to do that. That's what we are committed to.
All right. What happened to Mdot bringing questions from past meetings and sharing why or why not it can be done? What happened to confirming all concerns that were heard?
Yep. So that's something that I committed to do during the LAC meeting earlier in May. My plan was to compile all of that and report back to that LAC, because that's where the original comment came from. I would say that question and answer, I think we've got them on the website. We can continue to add to that. Certainly any of the questions that are coming up tonight, we need to make sure that we're posting that to our website, the link there. And so that's the plan moving forward.
Yep, and just for clarity, LAC is Local Advisory Committee, which is made up of residents who live in neighborhoods around the project area, people who own businesses, faith-based communities, nonprofit organizations. And we will post all of these questions and the answers along with the meeting materials on the website after the meeting. And then I think too, a lot of the boards are kind of aiming towards answering some of those questions and addressing some of those concerns. So after we get through the Q&A, please, whichever concern is yours, please make sure you talk to one of the project team members so you can get some more clarity. Okay. It says, to this project, will there be a new impact study? A new impact study, are we talking about a traffic study or?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's referring to like a construction impact to businesses or not, but
Say that again? You mean as far as like how the construction, the traffic, social impact? Okay. So social impact on the residents. And you're thinking more like what will happen with this excess land, how the history will be acknowledged in that sense.
Yep. So part of the FHWA green sheet, it does get into recognizing the historical significance of this area. So that is something that we are required to have in the project. We aren't really at that point in the design yet. Like I mentioned earlier, with progressive design build, there's kind of an overlap of design and construction. So there's certainly more to come on that aspect that we word out and get comments and feedback. I think that something that we're planning here in the next few months.
I think so too, and I'll just add a little bit. So the acknowledgement of the history is going to be through those community enhancements, and a lot of the feedback around that is being collected through the framework process. Mdot did have an event in February centered specifically around the history of Black Bottom and Paradise Valley. Mdot does also have a urban design and arts and culture consultant that is specifically focusing on some ideas around how that history can be acknowledged. And we've heard a lot about how people want more than just a marker, more than just a mural, something really substantial that comes from this project. And so at that June 26th meeting, we'll be able to share some initial ideas on how that actually can be acknowledged. Okay. It is evident the positive upside the project has for stimulating the workforce and economic opportunities in the city for years to come. Can you share your progress in ensuring there is representation and job opportunities for Detroit-based local partners and contractors?
Yep. So part of the obligation that we have is what we call DBE in small business. So disadvantaged business enterprise and small businesses. There are percentages of the contract that the prime contractor is required to meet. These are something that's federally obligated. This is also in addition to what the state of Michigan requires. So right now we are still proceeding with what we call DBE and small business percentages. Despite what maybe you read in the news, at the federal level, we are still doing that in the state of Michigan. The director of Mdot made that decision that we are going to continue doing that. So that plays a role in ensuring that some of these smaller contractors that want to get some more Mdot experience have that opportunity to work with the prime contractor on something that's right in their own city.
Yeah, I just want to elaborate on that one a little bit, that there has been a lot of effort to date to find small business people that want to participate in the project and make them aware of what those opportunities can be and make sure that they're getting prepared to be able to participate in the project. So we're not at the point yet where that's occurred, but having the contractor in early also allows us to work with the local contractor community and find where those opportunities are and for those relationships to develop so we can really push the envelope and make sure that there is all the local benefits from the project.
So, next question. The Grand Prix. Oh, sorry, Debbie.
No problem. So, additionally, that effort to date, it also includes coming up with training programs and specific outreaches for small businesses who may not have the administrative capacity to be able to know how to bid Mdot jobs. Doing Mdot work is a little bit different than doing other work in and around the city. So we're really lucky on the contractor team to have some DBEs that grew out of the program and have been doing a lot of work in the city of Detroit that are able to mentor these small businesses, as well as the prime contractor who was small once a while ago, and be able to mentor them on how to do Mdot work and pull them into the system so that they can also do subcontractor work or prime contract work if they're big enough to be able to do that on other Mdot jobs and other jobs that the contractor team may be bidding even outside of Mdot. So it's really about kind of expanding the reach and finding people who do similar work in other areas and kind of opening up the opportunities to them to be able to do Mdot work that they may have transferable skills for.
Great, thank you. So, next question. The Grand Prix is downtown running on Jefferson through 2028. Has this been taken into consideration? Their office is located on Jefferson, the third building right off of 375. Will this new project affect their property value? Will it go up? Will it go down?
So we had a sneaking suspicion that the Grand Prix would be extended. So with our early works construction, previous to this, it was already planned to start the early works after this year's Grand Prix. Going into next year's Grand Prix, we plan to start construction on basically any of the Jefferson work, etc. after that has already been finalized. With the way during the calendar year that the Grand Prix hits, doing construction before that is a little bit of a dice roll. You don't know what kind of weather you're going to have. You might have a really wet spring, and that's not something we can afford to have with open trenches, etc. Out there. So our plan moving forward, especially now that this has been solidified, that there's a multi-year agreement, is making sure that, again, our construction is meshing with what the Grand Prix schedule is and what their route is intended to be, etc.
So, next question. Does any portion of the funding come from tax capture?
Well, this is essentially, it's all tax dollars, right? Because we all pay taxes federally and state. So, but I guess from what we refer to as the gas tax, no. This is bond funds from Governor Whitmer's Rebuilding Michigan program and an infra grant. But again, I mean, it's still tax dollars that we're utilizing.
Next question. How will the community that was displaced benefit from this project?
Bradley,
I'm sorry.
real quick to the tax capture question. I think the question is really generated toward how downtown Detroit partnership is a tax capture district where they can collect taxes from business revenue and it goes directly back into the district. This is not funded by tax capture at all.
So, I'm sorry, you said, will your property value go up? We're going back to the question about the Grand Prix, and his building is located very close to I375. Will the project affect the value of his property?
I can't speak to that. That would be more of a planning and city question. I will have to get back. Is that your question?
That was Mr. Jenkins' question.
We can get back to you on that part of it, for sure.
We'll talk later, because you know, you can't affect the needs. I got tenants, I got
Sure.
work day, I just can't have to affect the needs.
Yeah, Mr. Jenkins, we can connect with you for sure. Okay. So the other question that I just put down was how will the community that was displaced benefit from the project? What is the plan and when will it be announced?
So we kind of talked about, from Mdot's perspective, on the Black Bottom and the Paradise Valley recognition, the small businesses and the DBE opportunities that we are implementing on this project. And then in addition to that, we talked about the historical recognition and the community enhancements.
Right. Just to reiterate some early ideas on how that history will be acknowledged, we will be talking about at the June 26th meeting. Okay. What will be done to ensure that, sorry, we're having a hard time reading this one, the filled area is stable for new road construction? What will the impacts on that part here? I guess, yeah, what will be done to ensure that the area is stable for construction?
Yep, I think I understand. So when we do large fills like this, which doesn't happen a lot, but we do institute a rigorous testing protocol. So the contractor puts material in basically 10 to 12 inch lifts and compacts it. Then we have a lot of testing procedures that take place to verify that there are no voids underneath that. So it's a very valid question with such a large fill like that we are going to be doing pretty intense testing out there to do that. This is something that we, compaction testing and all of that, that's something that we do on every other regular project. This one's just a lot more fun.
Okay, so the new bike path and sidewalk only have trees on the western side. The pavement is wide and it'll be a lot to walk along in the summer. Can there be trees added to the east side of the bike path and sidewalk as well?
Yeah, design-wise, we haven't really gotten to that point where we're starting to use aesthetics to further the design. That's definitely a component of what we are working towards. We're still working on kind of the conceptual layout and that sort of thing, but we'll be working in conjunction with the city of Detroit, put a design together for the aesthetics. One of the big things is maintenance, and so what we don't want to do is put in a really big extravagant landscaping design, and then maintenance-wise, it's really expensive for the city to handle.
So I think this next question is, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just to, you nudged me earlier to remind us to plug the idea that anything east of the boulevard or the bike path in that, what we were referring to as the exit area, anything in that area is going to be based on the city framework and the outcomes of that. And so just another plug for the community meeting that's going to happen at the end of this month to come and weigh in on what's going to happen there.
And this next question is kind of related because it's talking about there are street trees shall between the sidewalk and the eastern side. So kind of the same question answer where there is going to still be time to provide feedback about that. So if you leave a comment card, we can actually still talk about that design. Can somebody come, you guys write it on a card and we'll get it for you, I promise. Okay. Let's see. This one's a little hard to read too. I'll go to the next one and I'll come back. Okay. Can you please describe the process of filling in below grade space occupied by I375? How will this affect the air quality and the noise level during the process? How long do you estimate each segment of the refill process will take?
Yep, that's a really good question. So one of the things with a progressive design build that we're able to put into this design is it's referred to as a technical proposal. Basically what it is it outlines requirements for the contractor to follow, specifically with noise and dust. All the way down to, when the gravel trains dump material, you've all heard it, there's a big pile of sand or gravel, and then they pull forward and those swing gates slam and it sounds like a bomb went off. And if you live in that area, especially a fill area as big as this, that's going to be a lot of noise. So in that technical proposal, there's basically procedures that are outlined for the contractor to follow. In addition to that, it sounds a little bit unsafe when I say it, but muffled backup alarms, because it's constant beeping, especially if you live nearby. So that's part of it. Not muting the backup alarms, but just trying to muffle them so that they aren't so. And then the dust is another component. In that technical proposal is doing frequent passes with a water truck. Basically, it's probably one guy's job all day will be to drive and to spread water to make sure that that dust is controlled, especially during really hot summer months.
I just want to add on to that. One of the benefits, again, when we talk about progressive design build, we don't expect everybody to understand exactly what that means, but I just want to point out a benefit of that. We have the contractors here with us today and have been with us for the past several months, and they've been hearing concerns like this throughout. And so the more they're hearing from you about these questions and concerns, the more they understand the importance of controlling things like noise and dust. And so, again, just wanted to point that out as a benefit for how we're delivering this project.
Okay. Will a left turn signal be installed and will a left turn signal be installed and made turning south to Woodward to accommodate increased traffic? There is currently no left turn signal, and this already causes backups and safety concern.
Where is that located?
So we're talking about Woodward. Maybe it's on Mac, I think. Yes, Mac to Woodward.
Okay. Yeah. Well, whoever submitted that question, we can talk. With this project, that'll be removed from this project, possibly. With routing traffic, there might be some room in there to make some modifications to some of those alternate route signals. So we'll have to dive into that.
How will Mdot fund the community enhancements if the new land cannot be sold?
would say the new land will be marketable to some extent. Either way, we are contractually, by law, obligated to provide community enhancements. So whether it comes from the marketability of the property or the overall project cost, it's one of those things that has to happen, in my opinion.
Okay, next question. During construction, how will Brush Park residents reach Eastern Market? They currently use Wilkins.
Can you repeat that?
During construction, how will Brush Park residents reach the Eastern Market? They currently use Wilkins Street to reach the Eastern Market.
Yeah, I think again, we have the contractor here that can help us kind of explain that as we move forward. But in general, Wilkins will be shut down for a portion of time. Mack Avenue will remain open. So if you're in Brush Park, at a minimum, the detour would be just to go up to Mack and go over to East Market using Mack.
Next question is how and when will the community be engaged in developing the community enhancements plan and the historic recognition of displaced communities?
Yeah, I think we had a conversation about starting that at the next, either the next public meeting or the meeting after that. So that is certainly something that's coming pretty soon here. Even though this is a multi-year project, those discussions will be starting shortly. So I'll say sometime this summer.
The next ones were just asking why can't we speak. We just chose this method because it just kind of allows us to answer more questions. It kind of moves more efficiently and we're given a more broad range of letting everybody answer their question. So it's really just honestly for you all, for the crowd, to allow more questions to be asked and more people to hear what's on some people's minds is really the reason for this kind of style of Q&A. And that's what those all say. That's what the rest of them say. But we are almost out of time. I'm not sure if there's any more questions, and then we can go back to the open house style. Why is this project being done?
And that was in one of the slides. It's one of the boards. Certainly, the bridge condition is a big driver of this. They're very heavily deteriorated. Congestion efforts, safety concerns. A lot of that kind of just plays into the why now, and why are we doing this.
Why can't we just fix the bridge?
Yeah, why don't you just fix the
Why we
bridge?
can't just fix the bridge?
375 works very well, okay?
No, I understand.
It reminds me kind of what they did back in to Paradise Valley. It's like we going through it all over again. And do the people now have we have a voice, and the fact that some people will be not able to make it to the hospital and y'all would put their lives in jeopardy lets us know that there's no caring here. It's another way around this. Y'all spend billions of dollars to lay road and then pick it back up to lay pipes. Like, it's not making sense.
The money you spend on these meters and all of these, y'all can just fix the bridges.